One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh,
hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against, yes, glory is destined. Everyday women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots we on the ground. The camera panned up, King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
one day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, glory, glory, oh, glory, glory. Now the war is not over. Victory isn't won, but we'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, we'll cry glory, oh glory,
Selma is now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, heroes, to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemy is lethal, a king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald ego. No one can win a war individually. It take the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory.
one day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh,
Had to unmute myself. Everybody's getting used to this zooming in and out. Good afternoon all. I trust that you can hear me. If you can't, just kind of wave. All right. Okay, I'll have me scared for a second now. Y'all got to holler back if you hear me. So under those conditions, my friends, I'm really glad to be here with such folk. There's something different going on about Kenosha. There's something going on in this area that is bringing a lot of time and attention. Not only did you bring one presidential person, you brought the candidate to be the president there. You've had Kamala Harris, you have Mike Pence. I mean, you got a little bit of everybody heading to this very, relatively speaking, small part. Now, that means that a small place is going to have an outsized impact on America, on the world, etc. And, you know, I could sit up in Gotham City. I could sit up in the Big Apple and I could tell you what's happening there. And, you know, I'm sure I give you one or two insights. But, you know, there's nothing like hearing it from the people who are living it. There's nothing like hearing from folk who got to deal with it every day, 24/7, to actually deal with the situation. Now, I'm where are my manners? I am New York State Senator James Sanders Jr. I am the chair of banking. I'm the father of MWBE in New York State. I am, let's see, what other, so many titles. I'm the chair of the task force on MWBE in New York State. I am the chair of economic development for the National Caucus of Black State Legislators, et cetera, et cetera. Let's stop there. Chair, just call me the chair. Yeah, he the chair. All right, we got that out the way because I'm not the important ones today. And I'm really grateful that some folk have broken away from the front line to try to take some time to explain to the rest of us what the heck is going on in Kenosha. What is this chaos and confusion? And not just chaos and confusion, the glimmer of light that we're seeing, perhaps the path for our community forward. So we're going to bring a bunch of people on, and I'm going to introduce them, but I have some other folk, and I'm not sure if they are with me. Senator Cumry, if you are here, you better make some noise. You better figure a way to let me know you're here. Otherwise, I'm going to go straight into what everybody's been brought to do. So I'll tell you what. Now we're going to not spend a lot of time with the titles of the people, because it is more important that we hear about the stories of what is happening, and deeper still, why is this happening? And if you can, tell me, where do we take it from here? Where do we go from here? Martin Luther King's book was where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Where do we go from here? So let me start with my alter ego in the Wisconsin state, and he's a representative there, and David Bowen. Okay, let's see. Man, he's got one of those bios like mine. Now, Paul, you're gonna have to find a way of printing and putting everybody's bio up. I'm gonna try to give the 2-second version. David, please forgive me because I'm, just pray for me. Let's see, elected to the assembly since 2014, vice chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, board member of People for the American Way. It's hard to say what to put up and what not to. Midwest Caucus Vice Chair, Association of State Democrats. Okay, all right. You were able to put a lot of that National Caucus of State Legislators, Black Caucus of State Legislators. Oh, and then he tops it off with Black Millennial Political Convention. What we're going to do, Paul? We're going to have David introduce himself, start speaking, and then we'll cut back to his bio, see if you can't make his bio much larger, and we'll keep going back and forth between pictures of David while he's speaking and his bio, and we'll do the same for everybody. So, don't feel bad if all of a sudden your bio is up. We're trying to make sure that everybody else knows what the deal is. Brother Bowen, without further ado, thank you for being here. And the question is, what the heck is happening over in Kenosha? And where do we go from here?
Well, I appreciate you, Senator Sanders and Senator Comrie, Assemblywoman Hyman. I want to make sure I get a chance to just thank you guys for being on the front lines in New York and doing the great work out there. I always look forward to seeing you guys at the NBCSL, National Black Caucus of State Legislators, when we have our conference. And the fact that I did not get a chance to see your face in person and see how God is moving in your life, it leaves me with a hole. So I got to see you again when this pandemic is over. So I look forward to that. But what is going on in Wisconsin? This is one of the issues that has pretty much just kept with me from the day I got elected in 2012. There has been death after death, hashtag after hashtag, and constantly locally we've had these issues going on. So it was nothing new to be able to see another situation come about with Jacob Blake and him being shot in the back 7 times. We've had Dontre Hamilton killed in downtown Milwaukee in the middle of the day, shot 14 times for just being in the park. We've had Derek Williams, who said he couldn't breathe in 2011. We've had just recently Joel Acevedo in Milwaukee as well, who also was killed by an officer at a off-duty officer's house party. And then we had a situation in Wauwatosa where there is an officer that has killed 3 different people in 5 years, and he still is on the force today. He's suspended, but he still is collecting taxpayer dollars. So this all comes to head, and you know, I've been out there with the People's Revolution. It's the largest group in the state and the most consistent group in the country that's been marching over 100 days now. So I've been out there making sure that I'm protecting their right to protest, just in my private capacity, and knowing that I have the authority as a legislator as well, and trying to make sure that folks in our community are engaging in this process. And it's been important to be able to be out there and to see the energy after the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and our dear sister Breonna Taylor, and to be able to see that, you know, God has moved people to be able to get in the streets, to be able to fight, and not to accept that we have to just continue to live this way, continue to know that there are these situations that are going to continue to plague our community, target folks in our community as well. And the folks that have been out there have been the bravest people I've ever had a chance to come across. So, we were literally already out protesting when we got word of what happened to Jacob Blake. And we made a decision that night that we had to get to Kenosha. Over the next 48 hours, we definitely saw people's frustration, people's pain, but we also saw the exploitation from these outside agitators that are part of these white, known violent militias that were roaming the streets about on night number 2 and 3, and seeing these folks around in pickup trucks and watching law enforcement literally give them impunity, right? Not investigate or surveillance or do research on these groups, even though they're coming across the border. We literally are witnessing the unraveling of people's trust in law enforcement. And they literally have put all their focus on folks that have stood up and said that the system needs to change, that it no longer can only provide gold standard service in public safety to white people, but that it has to be accountable to Black people as well. And we've seen that resistance come from the police officers themselves, come from the people in leadership and law enforcement, come from folks that claim that they want to support law enforcement to keep the status quo that we know that has to go, and that that the same white supremacists that were out roaming the streets, that they benefit from. So it's important for us to recognize that we were literally blocks away from Kyle Rittenhouse when he decided to attack people that night, and it was important for us to recognize, one, just the depth of this situation, the depth of how much is really on the line of us actually addressing this issue, and then also recognizing that our opposition is much bigger than just an individual police officer that's done misconduct. It's much bigger than a situation of believing that one police chief, if he's changed out of leadership, that all of a sudden this changes. there is a domino effect of people that are supporting the status quo, that need to be checked, that need to be addressed, that need to honestly lose their positions and lose their leadership, and provide the people that want to step up to transform public safety as we know it in our communities, to make sure that we can have police departments that actually will be accountable and community controlled, knowing that they work for the community. They are there to protect and serve truly the community, not this false sense and facade that they create, that right now they only provide good service to folks in the white community. So, that's exactly what we're addressing. And we saw, that ugly head rear itself that night. And we're seeing people that are, they're choosing, do they want the good future that we all deserve? Do they want the chance to be able to transform our communities, or do they want to hold us back? Do they want to be a part of the opposition?
Well put, brother. I in terms of format, when all of you are finished, I may ask you a couple of questions, but we also are going to allow the audience to come up with questions. And we're asking everybody to live stream this type of information. We need to have everybody live stream. You have permission from me to send it to as far and wide as we possibly can, so that we use our tribal drums to get our information out, since Fox News may not exactly say it exactly as we want it said. And if you don't understand what I said, then I have nothing more I could say. So, but I will say that one of our premier Black groups in this country, one of the premier groups that have done work forever, is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And this organization, formed by some of our greatest, has a storied history from New York to Kenosha. And with that being said, we are really pleased and grateful that Mr. Anthony Davis, the president of the NAACP in Kenosha, Wisconsin, is kind enough to take a few minutes away and give us his insight, and perhaps the insights of the group, on what is happening, why is it happening, and should we care about it over here in Nueva York, New York, and what should we all do about it? Brother Davis.
First of all, Senator Sanders, thank you for this opportunity to come before you and all the other elected and appointed officials and all these panelists that are here. I'd like to say hello to a couple of folks I already know, Representative Bowen and my neighbor, Dr. Pritchard. We've known each other for quite some time. The first thing, the NAACP, we looked at this situation. We were there the first night after Brother Blake was shot. We were trying to make communication to get some channel of communication open with the local police department. We went down there the first night, and I guess you could say the doors were locked. And we just wanted to sit down and have a conversation to try to get some understanding. Where do we go? How do we address this issue? And we knew that was going to be some concern from the minority community. And before long, members within the community were there at our safety building, wanted to know why would a young man get shot in the back 7 times. I was upset. Everyone was upset, but we never received any type of communication. The doors were locked to the safety building. And as folks came to try to address what was going on, or just to get some communication, you can say all hell kind of broke loose later on. We were tear gassed. by the police department, and they were telling us we had to go home, and with the tear gassing, that agitated people. And next thing you know, we had fires started, equipment damaged, and we needed to just try to address things. But as the days went on, as Representative Bowen said, we had individuals come within our community that were not residents of this area. And they seemed to bring a different light that we didn't want to see here in Kenosha. Kenosha is a city where it's predominantly white. About 8% of it is African American, or say in our community. Somewhere around about 20% would make up the minority community. So we don't have a lot of say or input what happens in our community. This is something that we've dealt with for many, many years here in this community. It just unbelievable that what has been going on not only in Kenosha, but throughout the United States and throughout the world, where minorities have been treated in a, I guess you could say, in a disrespectful manner. We don't have the opportunity to when it comes to policing, we don't seem to have some say-so as to what goes on here. We don't have the respect, and we're just looking for some answers. We're in the process of trying to develop a communication with the mayor and with our state legislature as to what do we need to do here in Kenosha. Number one, we need to look at our hiring practices with our police department. We have, I would say, somewhere around about 3 to 4 African Americans on our police department. I mean, on our fire department, out of some 153 people, and out of 216 police officers, we have 9 that are Black. So we will look at those individuals, at those city organizations that we need to be more involved, have an opportunity where we can get additional hiring and more respect within this community. So those are the things that we're concerned about, but it just amazed me that we just can't seem to get anything established. But the local folks here are always willing to sit down, but we just have to get the opportunity to do so.
My. I thank you for that. And of course, we will come up with some stuff, and anybody who has a question can put it in that chat, and Paul Alexander from my office can work on it and try to keep the questions going. Along with the NAACP, get ready, that's a transition. Along with the NAACP, we have been honored to have with us the Milwaukee Urban League, and not just the Urban League, my friends, but the young part of it, the professionals of the Urban League. Now, to be in the Urban League means that your mind is about business. Your mind understands the connection between business and politics and government and things of that nature. But to be a young person in the Urban League means that you got your act together fast. While everybody else is napping, you're rapping. While everybody else is out wherever doing whatever they're supposed to do, you got serious early in life. And that means that you are a person that we need to look at because there may be a place for you in the development of our community. And there is a place for Ms. Henry, who has done, and you'll see her resume in a moment. I mean, she has done all kinds of stuff that may be of interest to you, but serving as the director for the office director for Senator Tammy Baldwin Now that's a major accomplishment. And she also serves as the president of the Milwaukee Urban League Young Professionals. That is an amazing thing. And I will keep talking until we get our screen together, because I seem to be shrinking, and that's fine. That's fine. As long as we allow the growth of Miss Henry, I must decrease so that Miss Henry can increase. Now, Miss Henry, before I touch the wrong button again and go through all of that, why don't you save me from myself and come to us as you see fit? A pleasure, Ms. Henry.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Sanders. I appreciate the opportunity to serve and to lend my voice to this esteemed panel on this important topic. So thank you for creating the setting. I don't get into titles, so anything that I ever do in life, it is based upon a blessing and an opportunity that I was given, and I just walk through it. But just to give some context, background about the Urban League and NAACP work jointly. I mean, we're legacy organizations that have strived for centuries now, to be able to create sustainable living for Black people. And also to make sure that we are protected in the courts, but protected when we are faced with issues that we're faced with every day, whether it's in the workforce, healthcare, and just trying to achieve a sense of thriving and not just surviving. And so that's the realm that we come from as the Urban League, as the young professionals. We're woven into that, where we have seen leadership come from historically, and it's our time to be able to not just be seen, but also be heard and to put some things into action. And so I'm proud to be able to serve in this capacity as president of the Urban League, Milwaukee Urban League of Young Professionals. Giving all respect to my president, Dr. E. Paul, who's been in close contact with our Urban League in Kenosha and also in our Urban League in Madison. So the Tri-City, and being able to support not only the work that is happening, the advocacy and work that's happening here in Milwaukee on the ground, but also in Kenosha, to make sure that the Urban League is supported there, but also the community is supported. And then likewise, our national president, Mark Morial, who has been in the seat that you all are serving in, but also lending his voice to this matter and making sure from a national perspective that we are all in solidarity and united so we can support the Kenosha community. I think as we move forward, Representative David has provided a great outline of what has taken place and even the role that he and I jointly have seen in serving in our personal capacities, but making sure that we have knowing that we have an obligation to be out there on the streets and advocating. And we've done that for, I think it's now 103 days, and making sure that we're protecting the people, but we're also bringing awareness to the issues that are going on, bringing awareness to the injustice, bringing awareness to the police brutality and all the actuality that is going on the streets of Milwaukee, the streets of Wauwatosa, Kenosha, and all across the state of Wisconsin, but also ensuring that there's accountability. I think we all know the issue, but we now have to get to the point of accountability. Like, we faced it personally, we've seen it personally, and so we know now what the encounter is, but we now have to address what the action has to be behind it, and how that we know that the police force works as a team. They work united. They stand their ground. And so in saying to our team that we have to do the same thing, that we have to stand as a team and stand united and stand in solidarity. I think the biggest piece outside of that is recognizing that there are a lot of outside forces who are drumming up to support what is going on. They're not backing down from that. And so here in Wisconsin, I think, we want to be progressive as much as possible. But I think when these incidents happen, it brings us back. It sets us back. It doesn't allow us to continue with our state model of moving forward. And so we see that when there's ever some injustice that are done to the Black community or Black and brown communities, that there's this huge uproar. There's a huge uproar now. We've seen now that the officer involved in the killing of Joel Acevedo has resigned. While that move is a move that he wanted to do, but that's not accountability. That's not accountability in the way that it needs to be had. And that's not justice. Justice is being able to see now you being charged, now you being held accountable for the actions that you have created. And also not just to the family, to the victim, to the family, but to the community itself. These have been polarizing issues, and now we have to identify ways in which to come together. And further matter, what has happened to Mr. Jake Blake Jr. is traumatizing not only for him. I'm glad and I'm blessed that he's still able to live and he's able to fight and be able to see another day, and also to be amongst his family and his children, which is most important. However, he's still facing what he shouldn't be facing, and he's a victim, but he's being treated as if he's the aggressor. He's being treated as if he was the provocateur. This was supposed to happen to him. And that's counter to what we see how the young man of Kyle, who came to Kenosha with intentions on creating violence, and that he did, and how the system is creating a narrative, how the media is creating a narrative of the two men, and not holding him accountable, how even leaders that we so-called leaders are not even speaking to the fact of the acts of violence that Kyle created that night in Kenosha. I think while, again, we know what this narrative is, we know what the agenda is, I think we now have to move in a form of how do we move in next steps, and how do we make sure that we're being strategic, how are we making sure that we organize, and how are we making sure that we're showing up in this matter. I don't want for us to be sitting here 30 years from now and still having these same conversations and still trying to figure out where do we go from here. I think this is the time, this is the opportunity. The platform has been set for all of us, whether we are seasoned vets in the game or whether we are new to this. It is all incumbent upon us to be able to act accordingly. I think additionally, just with the People's Revolution, I'm so proud to have been walking with them. We are now a family. We didn't know, most of us probably didn't know each other 103 days ago, but we know each other now because of the experiences, the struggles, and the things that we have gone through during this period of time, these breaking points. And so I don't want us to lose focus on that. I don't want us to lose our momentum and get away from what the end game is. And that is to continue to seek justice, not only for these victims, the families, but the community in which we all live, work, and serve.
Well put. When we are trying to explain things, we often explore the mind. What are people thinking? What is society thinking? What are many different people thinking? And some of the best people who can explore the mind are psychologists and psychiatrists. And we are pleased to have one here where we're going to speak of, and now you know I'm going to, Ms. Pritchett, that I'm going to speak to you about what was that young red racist, can't call him redneck. What was that? Yes, he is. What was that racist thinking? Why did he feel? But I'll tell you what, I'm jumping the gun and I'm putting words in your mouth. Although get ready, I'm coming at you with it. I will let you have your moment to just go through what you believe, what you see, and where do you think we're going. Thank you kindly for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Senator Sanders. Thank you all for this opportunity to share this space and this time. So as you all can see, my name is Dr. Dominique Pritchett. I'm the owner CEO and clinical director at Beloved Wellness Center. We are the second Black private practice in Kenosha, actually in our history. So very proud about that and to be purposeful at this time, especially a time like this. So I want to start off with reflecting on getting a phone call at 7:30, so 2.5 hours, perhaps after Jacob Blake was shot. I got a call and I'm considered one of the local Black leaders. I just say I'm just a humble servant that like to show up and cause some disruption of complacency and other people's comfortability when it's not being taken in the right lens. So I get a call at 7:30 and I go to the police station. And as Anthony Davis described, that was my state of mind as well. So from my recollection and my perspective, we were very peaceful. We were unwavering. We were loud, but we were peaceful. So to be retaliated against without provocation was traumatizing. It was disheartening, and hell yes, we were angry. I can't imagine anyone being harmed in any kind of way, taking that lightly. However, after being tear gassed, well, first they dropped this noise bomb in the middle of a crowd. So it kind of desensitizes you. You don't know where you're going. You can't see, you can't hear. So running around looking for your people, your friends. Then, you know, they lit us up with the tear gas. So you run, you scatter, you catch your breath, but we came back to our same positions and we stood firm. We had an unwavering stance in saying, I see you, you see me, and we're not going anywhere. So as momentum picked up, definitely we started to see some anger being displaced, and we saw fires and everything else you've probably already seen and described. But being on the ground with my community members. So yes, I am a licensed mental health professional. I do want to provide a point of clarification. In the state of Wisconsin, we cannot see ourselves as psychologists until they make us take one more final test. So I am a doctor of psychology and licensed mental health clinician, but being out there, it resonated with me in a way that I could not process with my clients in my office. So when we look at situations like this, it's so important that we look at them through lenses such as the critical race theory or race-related trauma and stress. You know, we take constructs such as race and trauma and realize that it's so compounded and it's complex. There is no easy answer for how to process this. Me as a victim of police brutality, which I can officially say at this point as a peaceful protester, processing it with my clients, it is a conversation not everyone can have. And definitely, I tell my clients, I don't want to spend a lot of time exploring the shared experience. I want to get to healing. So often clients don't have an opportunity for that because people are quote unquote culturally competent, but they're not woke. They're still sleeping. If you are still processing this trauma through a colonized and oppressive psychological theory, which many of them are taught and they produce us through those theories, it is very hard to talk to clients about their traumatic experiences when they're the theories that are meant to help and heal are not being talked about because of the stigma and the fear that comes along with it. But I say all of that to say, our community, we are hemorrhaging. We are hemorrhaging. Our trauma is complex, it's compounded. After every Black death, we are barely catching our breath. And to get a phone call and say there is a video, I said, I don't need to watch it. Where do I need to show up? So to not catch your breath, you realize without breathing, we can barely function without oxygen, and our brain starts going all type of ways. I tell a lot of my clients, don't apologize for how you are going to show up. Be unapologetic about your pain, about your trauma, and tell anyone that's expecting you to show up and have this perfect life, tell them to take 12 seats down and realize you're hurting. A lot of my clients are scared. So I can say all types of other things, but do know I am very concerned about who continues to do these psychological exams on these police officers. When they do this checkbox of a training every year, yes, I do work within our local police station as a mental health clinician. So I see multiple lenses, and a lot of people don't realize that being in it and on the ground is a unique position. A lot of times the annual trainings are a checkbox. I want to know, who are y'all bringing in and who are y'all paying y'all money to? The fact that these police officers keep using excessive force and killing Black and brown people. What's not sticking? Someone has to take accountability from the day even before they get hired. Who's signing off on these psychologicals? Because this perpetual fear and behavior does not come out of nowhere. I'm gonna pause right there because I have a lot to say.
And I have a lot of questions. You see, I got the advantage. But you know what? I'm a cheat. I'm going to allow y'all, anybody up here, to ask anybody up a follow-up question, comment, or concern before I go into it. Any of you panelists want to ask any of the other panelists a question, comment, or concern? All right, going once. Representative, you spoke of, now first things first, what is this group, the People's Revolution? What is this?
Right, I could definitely give some insight on that. Me and Ms. Tiffany Henry have been out with this group daily, making sure that folks are coming together to advocate for systemic change. And pretty much organically, it just got created. So it's a street movement of a couple hundred people that come together every day to make sure that they are protesting, that they are caravanning through the city, that they are going back against the police department in Milwaukee, Wauwatosa, or just marching throughout southeastern Wisconsin, and gone everywhere from Kenosha to Madison, the North Shore suburbs, South Shore suburbs, even some of the western municipalities as well, just to the west of us. So, it's an organic, consistent group that goes out and protests every day.
Ms. Henry, tell me of the demographics of that group, but based on your knowledge, of course, the People's Revolution.
Oh, and the great part about it is it's a diverse group. So it is a mixture of not just Black and white. There's our Hispanic, our brown sisters and brothers who are amongst us. It's also family friendly. So there are individuals who are bringing their children so that way they can get a first view as to the things that we're dealing with, the things that society will put upon us. It's also older and newer generation, but I'm glad to see that it is a lot of the new generation, young generation that's out there amongst us. I'm not young at all anymore, so I'm glad to be able to see some of the younger brothers and sisters out there, and they really are passionate. It's connecting to them because they faced encounters, engagements, or they're facing it now. They're seeing it now, and not just at the hands or behind police brutality, but also just some of the racial things that are taking place as well. And it's now connecting to them that I have a role in this. I'm feeling empowered through this. And so it is a diverse group of folks. It is people who you never thought would ever come together before. But this issue, this matter, this moment has brought together from people all walks of life. And we're out there on one accord, one agenda, and we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Brother Davis, are you trying to tell me that people got together to protest and went down to the police station, and a peaceful protest from what you're describing was met with military force, with tear gas and other things? Are you trying to say that nobody was disturbing the peace, short of a loud noise, disturbing the peace before they were met with this tear gas?
No, I would say no. The folks there, they were there with, in a peaceful protestive manner. Like I said, I was there, and then individuals, they got on the phone and called mainly the young folks, the ones that came out. Okay, those were in my age group. We were probably at home, but the young folks came out because, like I said, they're the ones that have to deal with a lot of this that's going on right now. They feel they've been mistreated. They show that they feel they have been respected. They're the ones that they say, hey, when I go out, I'm always being say, hey, look, hey, you're the first one we're going to look at. But those in the Black and brown community, those are the ones that are being profiled. And so those were the young folks that came out first to say, hey, look, we've had enough.
Well, Dr. Pritchett, why is all of this coming out now? Some argue that America is fragmenting or whatever. What about the time and what about the mind is having all of this coming out now? Perhaps we've never had any of these killings before. Is this just the first time in America, and why now?
We've been dealing with this for 400 plus years. This ain't new. This is not new, but I think when certain individuals hold a level of authority or a leadership position, number 45, it has opened the door for people to blatantly come out behind the hoods and come out behind the closed doors and show their oppressiveness, their racism, and their true non-color. So this is not new. And I'm very vocal about that because people are kind of like, oh my gosh, this happened. As Anthony Davis stated, Kenosha is a city that has not been without our own isms. And definitely when we even look at redlining, which is still active today, certain things are still set in stone to disenfranchise marginalized individuals. And I go so far to even say the shadows within the margins, because there are some people who don't even feel welcome even in marginalized communities based on how the city has been divided and how racism continues to show up. So being a longtime native of Kenosha, grew up most of my life here, I have seen it all. And even when you put a little bit of alphabet soup after my name, I am not discriminated, or I am not immune to a lot of the racism and stuff that even comes along with that. But Kenosha is a very Italian city. It is a very white city. And when we look at things like redlining, housing, school districts, allocation of resources, it has been boiling up and it's hit its breaking point. I was just on the BBC over in London, and their title was America on the Brinks. I said Kenosha has been on the brinks for a long time, and it took something this catastrophic to really blow it all up and have the ivory tower come down and have people look at themselves in the face and say, I got to do it differently. And if they're not, I'm bringing folding chairs because I'm inviting some different people to those tables.
Well, let me press you. You said they need to do it differently. Is the government of Kenosha doing it? In fact, let me mess with my brother. Back to you, my NAACP chair, because I suspect that this is more a question for you. So is the government of Kenosha, the city council, the mayor, have they got the news? Did they get the memo? And are they like Saul on the way to Damascus? They done seen the errors of their day and say, you know what? We will go and sin no more. Is that what is happening, Mr. Davis?
Senator Sanders, I believe they've seen the light. And
okay.
They've seen the light, but we still have to sit down at the table, as Dr. Pritchard has said. We need to sit down at the table and discuss some of these things. Because like I said, we've not always had a seat at the table, but now, like as she said, we're gonna bring folding chairs. If not got to sit down on the floor, I'm gonna be there. So this is our opportunity. They all of a sudden they want to talk about, hey, how do we address these issues? What can we do? When it was, as I said, it's always been there. It's been there as I was a child that grew up here. Like I said, when you couldn't go out and play with other kids, they would tell you something different, like, hey, why can't I play with you now? But as you get older, you start seeing the picture where you can't find an apartment, for your family. When you go there and you make an interview to see them, and then when you get to the door, oh, it's already rented. So we're looking at the housing issue. We're looking at the jobs that are in our community, opportunities for our young African American and brown people, so they can find a way to support their families and also make a better way of life in the community.
So
I wanted to say, to that really quick.
I yield to the doctor, and then I'm going to let Ms. Henry speak.
Gotcha.
Yes, my sister, thank you so much. Anthony, I want to provide another point of clarification. We're not bringing folding chairs to them. We are building our own table symbolically, because I find that that is part of the algorithm in which they said is you come to us on our terms in our house. No, you bring in a dish to the potluck. So that is part of the algorithm and the psychology behind, well, we invited you, so therefore A, B, C, and D. I find that in order to start doing things differently, there needs to be a shift in who's hosting the party, so that we can be in better control, and have a collective mindset of who we are strategically sitting at the table with. So if we got to bring extra chairs, I mean, because we got too many of individuals who want the change, and therefore we gonna leave everybody else out in the parking lot. And I say that not to be exclusionary or anything like that. We need right-minded folks, not like-minded, because everybody with the same mind is not going to get the job done, but right-minded folks at the table.
Thank you for
Ms.
that.
I'm scared to speak before you.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think what Dr. Pritchard said is wholeheartedly true. But to extend to that, even when we talk about this table, it has to be making sure it's the right people at the table. Because even the people that we think should be there or who already are there, they're not advocating and doing it the right way on our behalf. And so I think this is part of what, what the People's Revolution is discussing and talking about, that we now have to invite the people to the table, to our table, because for far too long, we haven't been invited to the tables. The right conversations haven't been happening. We are in the midst of two pandemics, a pandemic that we've already been seeing for 400 plus years, another pandemic that has now allowed for other people to be on pause and really see and recognize what's going on, whether they want to or not. But the same urgency that was given to coronavirus has not been the same urgency that's been given to this matter of racial injustice and police brutality. And so that's the level of conversation that we need to be having. That's the energy that we need to be bringing when we're saying, now, if this is the conversation you want to have, if now we want to bring solutions and really meet them with action, then let's do that. Let's do that. It's no longer where you're going to invite us. We're going to invite you. Here is the demand. Here is the need. Here is the want. Because I think once we address this greater, larger issue of this system, of criminal justice system, this police brutality, we can also continue to knock down the waves, knock down the doors of housing. We can talk about healthcare. We can get into the workforce. We can get into all these things, all these systems that have just kept us bound up and created barriers, and then have released this level of frustration that you've seen amongst everybody in our communities, and particularly with young people, because they have been met with it really at a deeper level than we have. Because now they're trying to find their place, find their identity in this world, and they're being met with so many different walls of no, and they're resisting to those walls of no. They're resisting to when they're seeing that police are. This is the cowardness that they have, or this is the action that they respond with by tear gassing, by shooting rubber bullets, by all of these different tactics that they use to continue to intimidate and create these barriers. And they're not seeing any type of system that's allowing for them to break through. And so they're saying, we're going to meet it and we're going to break through it. And so I think that's the energy that we have to expense now through all of this. It can't be this, we can't coddle. We can't say that we want you to invite us. No, we're inviting you because this is our issue and we have to change it.
Well put. Now, Paul, right after I give the representative a chance to weigh in on that, because I know his phone, being a state government person, his phone has been blowing up from the mayor and all the city council of Kenosha. He can't even get sleep because they're calling and trying to get him into the picture and trying to get everybody. I'm sure, and we'll have him speak of how some of the dozens of conversations they have had with him. But Paul, after he speaks, we have some press clips that you wanted to play to help us think our way through. Now, Representative Bowen, would you be kind enough to tell of the many calls that you've had with the mayor and the city council and what y'all have worked out I'm sure it's already figured out. And would you be kind enough to just tell the rest of us?
Well, it's not figured out. First off, let me break that news.
I'm shocked.
And, I represent a good chunk of the city of Milwaukee and the village of Shorewood, which is about 45 minutes away from Kenosha. But from what I can tell, most of the conversations to talk about transforming the system are being left on the wayside. And most of the conversations that I'm seeing now, even in Milwaukee and in Kenosha, and most of where we're bringing these issues up is not to give this issue the depth and the urgency that it really deserves and needs to address the systemic changes that actually will change it. One of the things that we've had uprisings before in Wisconsin. In 2016 in Milwaukee, we had Seville Smith, who was killed by Milwaukee Police Department officers. And, we got to that place where you saw buildings on fire. You saw an outpouring of what can we do to change. You saw an outpouring of people saying they're stepping up to provide resources and money and changes. But the systemic change portion was really the conversation that's left out. Now I'm seeing that creep its way right back in, and we can't allow them to do that. So that's why I love the analogy that it's a cookout now. And matter of fact, Black folks got to invite you to cookout. You can't, if you don't get the invite, you can't come. So I'm all down for that, because at this point, there are some people that are so tied to the status quo that they want to do these real small piecemeal changes. And we know that's not going to dramatically change the way that policing is done, that public safety is rendered. And this all makes the same argument of why we need to defund the police, and understanding that we pour so much money into our police departments. Usually during budget time, it's just unlimited. It's been this self-eating glob that you just keep giving money to and keep giving food to, and it just get bigger and bigger and bigger, rather than having a real conversation about how we can support all the needs that the community has, so that those needs aren't pitted against what people want to give in police funding. Take care of those needs first, and then address the fact that we have continued to pour more and more money into punitive and corrective measures that are after the fact. These are preventive investments to prevent things from happening in the future, prevent problems, prevent families from ending up on the street, prevent them from being evicted, from having less of access to basic needs and food and resources. These are resources that are just going down the drain of continuing to make your police departments even bigger, continuing to provide money to take care of military style equipment that they don't need. The overtime cost that we're seeing alone in every police department around the state, we're now saying we need to have a new conversation, because the outcomes that we're getting right now aren't even worth the investment. So how do we make sure that we actually invest into the things that we know that people need? And then you can have a new conversation about what public safety looks like and how can it truly be accountable to the people in the community.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm going to give you all a chance to refill your glass, because Paul is going to show 5 to 10 minutes worth of video. Take us there, Paul. If you give us some volume. Still need that volume. Paul, we're not hearing anything. My friends, we are learning this new technology as we go along. Like yourself, we had no idea we would be here. And one day we will learn how to do this.
Can I also add something in, Senator Sanders?
Yes, sir.
Let me also mention this. There is a desperate attempt.
Hold for a second, Paul. Let the man finish, sir.
We still can't hear the video yet. But let me just say this really quickly. There's a desperate attempt by those who want the status quo of where law enforcement is right now.
You know why they can't hear it?
We can hear you now, Paul.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. That says something's going on. Either mute yourself so he can finish. You said there's a desperate attempt by the law enforcement. I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, and the opposition just to discredit the folks that are advocating for change. So, you know, we're seeing that they want to focus on destruction and violence, knowing that there are white supremacists that are out there doing that work, that are out there setting things on fire, that are out there infiltrating the protests to make it look like there are protesters that are engaging in that type of activity. And, you know, I try to remind all the media that ask me about, you know, the violence and destruction, and to remind them, if you see a white supremacist that's willing to come across the border and literally kill people, and they planned on, you know, really like harassing and targeting protesters at night, you know, our group included, we literally had 10 vehicles almost that were vandalized and had their tires slashed. And these groups were attempting to get people isolated so that they could attack them. If they're willing to do that, what makes you you think that they're not implanting themselves into these protests to make that destruction look worse? They actually benefit from it looking like a war zone, from things looking as bad as they possibly can be, so they can claim that they're coming in to protect property, that they're coming to actually help, but literally they're only there to cause destruction.
We will return to that. I'm going to let him play this, but we can look at that theme in a moment. Paul, if you got volume, let's do it. If you don't, I think you done lit a fire over here, pun included. You could go for it, Paul.
Wait, can you not hear it?
We can't even see it, brother.
Oh.
The lowest volume and visual. Okay, you got 30 more seconds, Paul. Let's see what happens.
American City is rocked by outrage over the police shooting of a black man. It was all caught on video. Angry protests led to an overnight curfew in Kenosha, Wisconsin. That's between Milwaukee and Chicago. The man who was shot, 29-year-old Jacob Blake, is now in a Milwaukee hospital. Our national correspondent, Jerika Duncan, has more on this story, and we have to tell you ahead of time, this video, very tough to watch.
This graphic video posted on Facebook shows the moment an encounter between Jacob Blake and Kenosha police quickly escalated. Screams rang out as police fired at least 7 shots Sunday evening. Blake appears to have been shot in the back as he entered the driver's side of an SUV at gunpoint. His children were reportedly in the vehicle. It is unclear whether police believe they saw a weapon.
Hey, Paul,
I know you got
Paul,
kids and girl and all
we
that.
got it. Okay, Paul, I think we got it. Thank you for that. We'll continue working and getting our skills. By the time this crisis is over, we will be quite good with all of us. We will be able to have our own TV station, as we should have had 400 years ago, were that possible. Let's see. Now, I was going to ask you, Representative, that were you clear on a report? In fact, several reports have come out about the white supremacists who have infiltrated the police department, and one of these reports is the FBI is putting out reports saying they are deeply concerned and have moved the white supremacists up on the issue of being terrorists, and there's a battle going on at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue over the issue of, can the white supremacists be called terrorists? The FBI is saying absolutely, and there is a pushback. Were you aware of some of these police and other reports, sir, about the infiltration of the police departments, police and public safety departments by the white supremacists?
Yeah, this is some of the things that we've been asking for years, to try to find proof of official law enforcement agencies being infiltrated with folks that have these views that come from these violent groups. And it's just been very clear that there's been a real hesitancy from folks in the system to actually take that on, to actually address that fact. If anything, if there is a known hate group coming across state borders and they are targeting residents that aren't out there, it's not like you got these folks out there carrying military style weapons and like everybody is prepared for this war. These are folks with signs. These are folks with bullhorns. These are folks that came out to let their voice be heard. And you literally have folks that are going out there to exploit that, to target them. And that it just continues to provide more and more evidence of why we need to dramatically change the system that has already proven time and time again it will not step up to rise to the occasion to protect Black people, to serve Black people. And it's just really clear that we have to make those substantial changes, and that law enforcement agencies and leaders have to be honest about the folks that may be in their ranks already and have these views, that they need to be addressed, that's where you need to put your true focus. Stop wasting your time on protesters and trying to harass them and target them and surveillance them. You should be focused on these violent hate groups that have a known history of hurting people, of targeting people, and oppressing people.
Anybody else want to weigh in on the alleged, and I'll use that because I'm being nice, conspiracies perhaps between the white supremacists and the police agencies, the alleged conspiracies? Is there anyone want to weigh in on that? Let me, I am by training a Marine. I did Marine Corps. So I'm aware of all of the toys that the military has. And when you speak of sound bombs being thrown in you, lights, and I mean, really, this is 101. This is the stuff that they train in, that they and the equipment that is being used is really wrong for peaceful demonstrations, my friends. Everyone knows that it will inspire folk to higher heights of unrest, if you wish. You use much of this equipment in the last steps when you're doing some stuff. So, and can I encourage all of you that you want to look at my Facebook? Oh God, a release a month ago. I did a panel very similar to this on what are the groups that would like to break up peaceful demonstrations, including the white supremacists and other groups. You may want to go back into my Facebook page, James Sanders Jr., and look at that because you're in it. I was describing what you are now in. Did I see a hand, Miss Henry? Were you trying to say something, or were you trying to tell me to go on?
No, I'm going to come in just a bit. I'm going to let you finish.
All right. So I would encourage you to go into that. Now, Dr. Pritchard, you had spoken and said how we need to have this type of training, or training that will help people understand that they are exhibiting biases, showing prejudices, and living their racism. But the president just outlawed much of this training in federal agencies just the other day. Aren't you swimming upstream rather, and doesn't he know more about this stuff than you?
Well, I found that quite humorous and deeply sad that you would reverse something that is intended to do more healing than harm. So it's just comical of, wrapping up the next few months as a way to destroy and dismantle opportunities to heal and unite people. So yes, definitely to speak on it. Those opportunities are still needed in every workplace. I'm a huge believer in equity and inclusion is not should not fall under HR. It should be in its own, it should be its own department, its own vision or opportunity within a company. Sorry, I lost my words. So I just found that so humorous. But when I say that a lot of police departments need diversity, inclusion, programming like that, like I said, that does not start the day they get hired. There needs to be some type of apprenticeship. Oh, you want to be a police officer? Let's see how you really navigate between Black, brown, and other individuals that may not look like you or that come from you. So that is real world assessment and evaluation of who an individual is and how they're able to adapt under unique and different circumstances. And that cannot happen when you are in the field under pressure with a gun in your on your hip. That starts way before you get into the police force. Someone needs to take responsibility and accountability for doing all this the same way all these years. My sister talked about that there needs to be a shift. There needs to be a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is a shift so big, everybody's got to pay attention. So you don't need number 45 to keep that law about diversity and inclusion training. It should be part of your bloodline within your company. If it's not, I got questions for you.
Well, Ms. Henry,
Amen to that.
You wanted to say something.
Yes, kudos, Doctor, you landed out there. It's exactly where my thoughts are. To connect even to that. So I've been using this analogy when we talk about, training of police officers, training police departments. This is just me and how I was raised. And I think most of us probably could attest to this. So there were certain things that I would not do, could not do, because there was training that was instilled into me by my mother and my father. And when I got out of line, which I often did, when I got out of line, I knew that there was going to be consequences behind them. And there were certain things that I was not going to do, could not do, because I was afraid of what was going to be coming behind if Hugo or Mary found out. Connecting to this, they have all the training that they need. To me, it's about accountability. They're going to continue to do things because nobody is holding them accountable to those actions that they are doing. Mama and daddy is not holding them to a standard. Mama and daddy is not saying you're wrong for this. Mama, even Big Mama ain't saying nothing and letting them know that you're being held accountable for your actions. So there is a system that is enabling this behavior. There is a system that is saying to them, it is okay when you go into these communities, this is the type of encounters that you can have. This is how you can treat people. This is what you can do, because we're going to back you in doing that. And so I definitely agree that there needs to be a better way of being able to reform, transform this system. We have to, in all actuality, I know that there's a lot of discomfort, maybe confusion, frustration around the word of defund, because people are thinking of it as that you are taking away the police, but that's not what it's meaning. That we understand that there are situations, interactions where police are needed, but where they are not needed is where we have the frustration, where they are allowing for some of these situations to become escalated. To where you've been taught certain things, but you go against that even what you've been taught. Those are the things that we're talking about. And so at the end of the day, I'm still about the accountability piece. Whatever I do, whether it's on the clock, off the clock, I'm still held accountable. And there's still a standard that I have to meet. And when I don't do that, there's somebody there looking over me and telling me, hey, Tiffany, you were wrong for that, checking me for that, making sure that I'm held accountable for what I am or am not doing. And so I think that's the frame of mind, the mindset, the platform that we have to set. And once there's some standards, once there's the laws that are on the books, and even some things that we can create, policies that we can create, and then they're set to that, I think then we'll continue to see a shift in the system that we know of it right now.
Well, Brother Davis, I've got a point. I got a point for you now. In such a saintly assembly, the devil needs a needs a spokesperson, and I guess I will be the devil's spokesperson right around now, since all of you guys are saints over there. Maybe it's a Midwest thing. Maybe East Coast we got enough devils, but strike that from the record. I didn't say that. I did say this. Now, there is an argument that is raised, and it goes something like this, Mr. Davis. It goes, yes, there may be a problem in America. And yes, we are looking at this problem in America. But the violence that is being is coming out is hurting and playing into the hands of the folk who want to maintain the status quo or do worse. Therefore, all of the demonstrations need to cease, and we need to handle this in another fashion. How would you respond to that, Mr. Davis?
Well, there's always going to be those that say, hey, look, let's do away with the protesting. If we stop the protesting, for some reason or another, it seems like those that are in power aren't going to listen.
Mm.
You know, they always want to make an excuse with the violence that they've seen, with the folks chanting Jacob Blake's name, George Floyd's name. Those are the things they don't want to hear, because, hey, people are speaking the truth to them. And that's why they would rather, if we would sit down and shut up, as they would say, or as they told LeBron James, just, hey, go back and dribble. That's what they want us to do. But if we get up, the people get out there and they speak and they protest, then they seem to be listening somewhat. I just believe that as we move forward, we're going to continue to protest. But we also, as they say, they're going to be invited to the picnic. Now, if they don't want to come to the picnic, then they don't want to eat the meat. So this is an opportunity for them to sit down with us and listen to what we have to say.
Knowing Midwest barbecue as I do, I would encourage everybody to get there. Although I'm more of a St. Louis barbecue type of guy myself, but that's tomato based.
You got to come this way once in a while.
Well, it seemed that everybody's heading your way before long, and it seemed like everybody who wants some justice needs to at least go out there and say, I'm here to count me among the numbers. Don't you think that these folk by themselves, they are not. And so I suspect that the representative may have me get out there, and I guess I have to fly or travel. Man, how do you travel this day and age? But be that as it may, we'll work that out. But wait a minute. Sister Elaine Short from over here said, now wait a minute. One way that we could deal with all of this is by just dealing in the courts. I mean, all right, there was demonstration. Why don't we just take this to the courts, and why don't we let the courts handle this one, Sister Pritchett, Doctor? Why don't we done demonstrated. So why don't we just take it to the courts and handle this one like fine men and gentlemen and women, gentlemen and gentlewomen?
Well, one, that is part of it, is to take it to the court. And I do have a unrelenting fear of what's to come. We're doing so many peaceful activities, unifying activities in our city to keep catching our breath. But I am concerned about, what's going to happen with this officer, or what's not going to happen with him. But when we look at the court system and who represents the jury, if we are predominantly a white city, who's going to represent the jury in our city? So to take it into the court is still one of the bigger issues of fair and equitable justice for all. You know, we've heard of the analogies. We got a brother that come in, you know, with a similar or same charge as a white counterpart. We know he's not going to get fair and equal treatment. So to think that a man who got shot 7 times, or even the brother in Minnesota who died, will get fair and equal treatment in the justice system is part of the perpetual fear and frustration and anger, is that we have not seen it happen.
Now wait a
So
minute.
I don't think it's as easy as just saying take it to the court and let the courts deal with it, because we definitely know. I always say I'm psychoanalytical. I'm not political per se, so I'm not going to talk all the language. You know, Representative Bowman and sister, y'all can talk about that. But even we got to look at who's sitting behind the bench. Who's standing up in the courtrooms? What are their platforms and what are their records? So that is not always an easy option. And the last thing I'm going to say is protesting is part of the movement to hold even the judicial system accountable at some point in day and time.
You know, if I didn't know better, I'm listening to you. It sounds like you saying that there's a systemic problem, a problem within the system as a whole. Are you saying that our system is racist, that we got systemic inequality taking place? What are you saying? Are you saying those things?
All right now, Senator. I'm going to piggyback on something.
Just asking for a friend.
No, I'm not asking for a friend. I'm going to answer for myself. So,
okay.
Let's look at data. I'm a very data-driven person. I use science, spirituality, and data to help me understand all this craziness that's happening. The data does not lie. The data has always not been in a favor of a Black or brown person when it comes to fair and equitable treatment in the judicial system. Is that complete system racist? I can't speak on that, but we know it is built on racist principles and racist tendencies and unequal treatment to individuals. I'm not even going to go into the whole Constitution and how that's written, but there is some systems that continues to present an oppressive stance for people to be treated fairly when there's a dominant culture that sits behind the bench in the pews and that is judging an individual based on their crime, if that made sense.
Now, Representative, now we in government, come on now. Now we're going to quickly tell these people that they're all wrong and that there's no racism here. There's just, there's no racism here. Go ahead, Reverend Bowman. Go ahead and tell them that man, they could just rest assured, go back home and rest, relax, because the system will make this thing go right. Go ahead and tell them that.
Well, it is funny how like the tables turn, and when you have a bunch of Black folks standing up advocating for change, and they're not going nowhere, they're not giving up. You know, all of a sudden protesting now is like this bad thing, but they're the same ones that lift up the Boston Tea Party, right? Mm-hmm. They don't count throwing tea into the lake, into the river as looting. They don't count what they did as a protest, right? This country was built, and every moment of change that was advocated for is because people stood up and said, we're not taking it no more. Y'all have to do it. And, you know, that is the American way. Now, we also got to a point where you had an opposition that said they still didn't want to change, and you had a whole war because of that, and that was the Civil War. So the same white supremacists that are out here rearing their ugly heads out, they want to change history. They want to not recognize the fact that they lost that war. We will not just be property in this country. We deserve access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, just like everybody else, and that we will get it. And in their minds, if they can't go back to that, they're willing to even kill for it. They're willing to even hurt people for it. So that's where we are. When some people talk about taking sides and stuff like that, there's no real side. There's only the future that we all deserve. But when you start talking about white supremacists out advocating for what they want to see, and they're the same ones that are backing Trump, they're the same ones that are backing policies and systems to stay the way that they are so that they could benefit, you know, now we are talking about sides, because it's our side And our side isn't just black folks, it's black, white, brown, it's people of different sexual orientations, it's different people of different faiths. It's people that all believe that we deserve this better future. And there's this other side of white supremacists that want things to say the exact same. Then we can talk about sides.
Now, Miss Henry, do you play golf?
No.
Good for you. I don't either. But I know that there is a term in golf where they get to do, well, it's not an official term, but they do a do-over. And if anybody knew that term, they sure would help me out. All right. None of you play
Mulligan.
golf?
Mulligan.
A mulligan. Something you read in the book. Of course, Mr. Davis had never done a mulligan, but he heard from a third party that there is such. And I would suggest to you that the white supremacists are trying to do a mulligan. They are unhappy about what happened in the Civil War, that they lost and lost badly and should have lost. In fact, should have never fought it. And so they are doing everything to rewrite that history, and they're getting awfully mad that y'all tearing down their statues. How dare you take down Nathaniel Forrest, General Nathaniel Forrest statue, who was one of the key people in what's called the Fort Pillow massacre of black troops, but a whole bunch of other troops, and is the father of the Ku Klux Klan. How dare y'all get mad at that? Isn't that just part of American history? I mean, what y'all want to do? Y'all want to just get rid of all this history? No, we don't want to get rid of it. We want to right-side it. We want to put statues like that in museums so we can properly explain who these people are, what role they played, and why others felt necessary to even create a statue of people that some would consider war criminals based on what they've done. There I go, editorializing. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be neutral here. But there is no neutrality with justice and injustice. Anyone who wants to be neutral in the midst of a Klan outrage, you sided with the Klan.
That's right.
They say that silence is violence. They say that you can't be silent to injustice. In fact, that's what got us here. But there I go thinking again, and I'm not on that side, and people don't want to hear me, they want to hear y'all. Now, a lot has come up here, and I was messing with your sister Henry, and wanted to know if you ever did play golf. Now, what do you think of all these things that have been said? We've said a bunch of things up here. What else needs to be said that had not been said? So, I'm a daughter of a history teacher, and he taught, he's deceased now, but, bless him, he taught me the history that was not taught in schools. And so when you talk about statues, when we talk about these wars, it was never identified that, it was always identified as America being patriotic, America defending, America making sure that Americans are able to have the rights of liberty and justice. But it never included, it never mentioned intentionally the history the violent history against us as Black Americans. And I'm thankful that I was taught that history that allows me to freely come out and protest, to freely come out and advocate, to freely sit here and talk the way that I'm talking now, because I think when we talk about these issues, when we talk about the real history of America, and we talk about what has been done to us for 400 plus years, that scares a lot of people because they don't want to be faced with the reality, whether or not that they were in the midst of those incidents or not. They know that that's what happened. And so they don't want to come encounter with that reality of here is what got us here. And that if you're angry about why we are in this position, be angry at what has taken place.
don't be angry at us as Black people for wanting to make sure that our value is understood and that we're respected, and that when we say the word Black Lives Matter, that we're not identified as terrorists. That is saying that we are human just like you. It's saying that we have value just like you. We have identities just like you. That you want our, what is the term? They say that you want our rhythm, but you don't want our blues. You've given us those blues. You've given us the reason why we sing the blues and why we have this struggle, because it's been this continued battle. And so I think a lot of what has been shared today are things that we all know and things that we just have to continue to move the needle on. I think we're in an appropriate time. I'm so blessed and so thankful that we've had our ancestors who brought us to this moment. I don't think it was for them to carry out and get us to that promised land. I think it was for us to identify our role and how we're going to get us to that point. And so that's where we are at this point in time. You know, we're going to continue to be met with individuals, groups, whomever, who are going to continue to throw up, you know, say that they're the victims, that we should be ashamed, all of those things. We're going to continue to be met with that. But I think we have to be solid and we have to stand our ground. You know, I think back a couple of months ago when we were in the height or the middle of the pandemic, and how our state capitol was immersed with white faces of those who did not want to take heed to the mandate of staying home and protecting lives, and how there was a huge amount of upset and frustration and chaos and saying, I don't want government dictating what I do. I don't want government telling me how I should move. I want to get back to having my business. Well, I think this is also an appropriate time for us to say, stop killing us. Stop with this racial injustice. Stop with this injustice. We want to live. We deserve and have the right to live. We have the right to continue to be who we are as Black people and not feel threatened, not feel intimidated, not to be fearful, and not to feel as if when we have police driving behind us, that we have to cringe, that we have to prepare our statement, that we have to prepare as to how we're going to move when those situations happen. We want to be able to have the right to having the same access that you have. But right now we don't have those things. And so in order for us to have those things, we have to make some noise. In order for us to have those things, the protest has to happen. Because of the fact that I am a daughter of a history teacher and who was raised in the South during the 60s, he showed me and taught to me, and I'm thankful for the life and the legacy of Congressman John Lewis, and where he said, get into some good trouble. And when we see things happening that go against the grain, it is a responsibility of all of us to step in. And so it is a responsibility of all of us, no matter if you have a PhD or no degree, because when you take those degrees away, we are still looked at the same. When you take away those titles that we have, we are still looked at the same. And sometimes we're even treated worse because of that. I think all of us maybe can attest to, and I know particularly my story of even me being a part of this point in time, I had a lot of side eyes, a lot of people questioning, a lot of people saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. You have to choose a side. I'll never choose a side when it's Black bodies at stake. As a Black woman, I have an obligation to stand up. I have an obligation to speak up. I have an obligation to sacrifice. I have an obligation to put myself in the middle. And so I think that's the mindset that we have to carry as we move forward. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to be out on the streets. There's lanes for every single one of us. Identify that lane and follow it through.
Well, speaking of lanes, Mr. Davis, we might as well just doctor you. You're so wise, we might as well just go ahead. Mr. Davis, and it's a question I'm gonna raise with everybody. There are those who say that most of the faces they've seen in national demonstrations have been white. And there are those who say that this movement has been taken over by whites. A, is this true? And B, is this a bad thing if it is true, sir? Mr. Davis, you first.
Well, as you've seen, and I will say that, yeah, there has been a showing of whites at these protests, but the reason they showed up because they're tired of what has been happening to the African American community and brown community. They have finally seen, like I said, I ran into a lady today. She told me, she said, look, she got into an argument with a lady concerning if I had this, every time our children go out, we have to sit down and have that talk with them. She said to this white woman, dude, you have to have that talk with your child when he goes out to make sure that he comes home safe when he encounters law enforcement? She said, no. Well, every African-American father or mother has to have that conversation with their child. So they're finally there are those that are starting to see that, hey, this situation that has been taking place for over the years has finally come to a head. It's not only affecting the African-American and brown community, but it's affecting the white community too. So they finally seen the picture as it is. There has to be a change now.
Well, Representative, that doesn't answer the question. Has the movement nationwide or in Wisconsin or New York for that matter, has this movement been taken over by whites? And if it has, is that good?
If it has been taken over by whites, it's a good thing, but we're still here in the picture.
No, I would say absolutely not. It's not been taken over by white folks. You know, if you're a part of a Black Lives Matter movement and it's being led by white folks, that was your decision. You in the wrong place, because everybody else is being led by amazing, young, talented, just like organizers that have been birthed out of this moment and got sparked to be a part of something much bigger than themselves. Like I've seen, 19-year-old Brandon Wilborn, right, out of Milwaukee. All of a sudden, he's instead of just hanging out and getting in trouble, like he got sparked to be a part of the protest every day, and he has this energy to him where he's not going to stop advocating for justice for his community, for his neighborhood, for his friends, for his family, and that young man's going to go on to do amazing things. You're seeing creatives do stuff in music and art, and I'm witnessing it real time. For us, it was a dramatic shift when Trayvon Martin was killed, and many of us, you had new organizers come out of that movement, and you're seeing the same thing right now out of the protests out of George Floyd and the protests, even in Kenosha locally. I met some of the Black organizers, and all it takes is that moment for that spark to go off in you, and you are changed forever, and you are on a path that God set you on, and you set that path ablaze. But there are talented, amazing young Black folks that are out there coordinating these movements. And they may not have been doing it for a long time. Or I think of Destiny. Destiny is another good example. Monet in Milwaukee, she's a teacher. She got sparked to be engaged in this movement and has not turned back since. We don't need white folks to lead right now because you have so many talented Black folks that are out there doing that work. We just need white allies to trust them. We just need white allies to be a part of being accountable to movements that, you're doing some things that are creative that you haven't done before, and it might leave you a little uneasy. But it doesn't mean that you try to, take over things or you try to coordinate it yourselves. It means that you need to trust the people that are closest to the pain. You trust the people that are, they're facing off with white supremacists. How many people can say that they are doing that type of work? And these young people are fearless, right? And that's part of what you need in this day and moment for people that believe that we can't put this off anymore. After 2016, things did get back to normal. Things did fall back in a place where, You know, people even got, myself included, just got let down and was just like, well, you know, maybe we could do this later. People have the hope and the fire right now to get this done right now, that I have not seen before. That, you know, we demoted the police chief in Milwaukee because of that energy. We're seeing a counter to police departments just to create their own narrative and people just to believe it on face value. You know, that shift would not have happened without the movement that you have, the energy that you have out there right now, and it's being led by Black young people.
And just to add to that, Senator Sanders, I think even, you know, there's a question, all of what David said is 1,000% accurate. I said it earlier as far as just being energized by the young people who have just really taken the realm of this and allow for us to just support and coach and to provide that wisdom, but they're carrying, you know, the frustration, but they're channeling that frustration into how can I really go about doing this and doing it the right way so we're not back at this moment in a year or 4 years from now. But even to expand upon that, you know, there's even the question of whether or not women are a part of the movement or a part of the revolution. And, you know, Representative Bowen just mentioned one, I'm one, but I don't even consider myself as like that because I just consider myself as doing the work. But Destiny, Mariah, there's several women, young women at that, who are taking charge and saying, hey, what needs to be done? I will do it. What needs to be said? I will say it. Not just being led by men, but leading men, and being unapologetic about it. And so I think they're taking on that spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer. They're taking on that spirit of Angela Davis. They're taking on that spirit of all of these great people who we didn't even know, but we're inspired by their action. And now they're being inspirations for the younger people who are out there and the young people who will see them when the story is being written. And I think that's part of my job, is to help ensure that when this story is said and done, that it is placing those individuals at the forefront of this and allowing for them to be protected, and that the story is said right as to what was done at this moment in time, and that they're taking on this leadership position, you know, without any experience, without knowing what it's going to lead to, but knowing that we're in it and we're in it to fight and we're in it to win. We have a chant that says, I believe that we will win. And so we say that with the fierceness of that, we do believe that we will win because they're taking the realm of this. And lastly, just to address the piece about whether there is a whitewashing of the movement, I definitely agree that if that is the case, you're in the wrong movement, because allies should show up as allies. They should really be co-conspirators. They should be more mad than we are mad because they're seeing the injustice being done against us and being willing to stand at the forefront. I will give just a quick story of what happened when we were in Kenosha, that it was asked of, hey, if you are a white ally, come stand in the front. And you should see how many people willingly stood to the front to protect us, to shield us, because they respect what's happening. They see what's happening, but they also don't want it to continue to happen. And so they're willing to sacrifice so that way they don't even know us, but knowing that we're going through the mental, the emotional, the physical, all of this burden that we are facing, that they're willing to face it right with us, but also being mindful of the fact that it is not their place to lead, but to be led and to provide support and resources as they can.
I am reminded right before I get to you, Dr. Pritchett. Now I'm about to. I am reminded, of course, of Malcolm X and how he taught us in the late stage Malcolm X. Let's be clear, late stage, where Malcolm did say that there was a role for whites in the struggle, and the role for whites in the struggle is to get to the white community and educate the white community as to what is happening and what's going on. I believe that he would not have the least bit of a problem with white people surrounding the demonstration and assuring that the brutality and the madness that the supremacists and others may want to inflict on the Black community could not have impacted the Black community. I'm also here to remind you, as I am a political follower of Malcolm X, not a religious one, a political one, where he did tell us that we should never sit in a spot where anyone criticized John Brown. He said, don't you ever sit anywhere and allow anyone to criticize John Brown. And he was saying that to Black people. And I think that we need to remember that at a moment now, if Martin John Browns stand up and are willing to put their bodies to the line and work with us, not on us, and work with us, then there is a place in the movement. But I'm sorry, Dr. Pritchett, I'm jumping the gun. But Dr. Pritchett, and you heard what I heard, that there's a billionaire somewhere sitting someplace, pulling the strings on all of y'all and getting all of y'all, hot and bothered and sent out there. And that billionaire is a white man. Doesn't that bother you?
Well, definitely, I don't agree that the movement or the efforts are being taken over by non-Black and brown people. I'm a believer in active allies. If you are not active, why are you calling yourself an ally? But I want to speak to the young leaders that are rising up. They are using their misinterpreted resilience. I was that young girl that had something to say about every indifference. I stood up for the voices who didn't have a voice. And so for so long, Black and brown people have had a misinterpreted resilience. And what that means is that they look at our anger, they look at our pain, and that's what they see is anger. They see unapproachable, they see intimidation, but that's misinterpreted resilience. Those are the survival skills that these young people have had to deal with their whole life. And to see them igniting all of that resilience to do something great, it brings me nothing but joy. So often young people ask, well, why are you telling us about all this Black history stuff? That don't apply to us. They know it now. They know it now. So they're taking all of those small bits and pieces of conversations we had when we chaperoned them on a college tour at the Boys and Girls Club or, whatever, or in my office, wherever. It means something now. They are part of an evolution of generational healing, generational change. So I am so excited to see these young people really start to find their place and where they fit into this world as a Black and brown person, because every space is not for them. But also in terms of white individuals, I believe every individual who is right-minded and who is open-minded is needed for the greater cause. Just like all of our representative roles are needed to continue to open doors because we have resources. There are no puppets controlling us. Yes, they may have the dollars, but we are in control of the movement.
I see. Now we're reaching to a critic. Doesn't that time fly? Look like we just sat down and now we're dang near at the end of that time. Now here,
and I'm gonna have to scoot out early too.
Then well, you would be the first one. I want you to explain to us, what should we do? What should we do in Wisconsin? What should we do nationwide? What are the acts that we should be taking locally, statewide, and nationwide to address these evils? And since you had the scoop, then it's up to you. You the first to shoot.
In my world, we have been trained, and many of us helping in a wellness sphere, we find ourselves entering into the profession and finding where we're most comfortable at a micro level, a meso level, and a macro level. So you got you're close to home, you got your citywide, and you probably got your state government bigger areas. So I encourage people to find out where you fit, because in each of those spheres, there's some systems that need to be shut down, shattered, and shaken up. So find out where you fit. But as I focus on wellness and helping people understand, it is okay not to be okay. So that's the lens I'm going to summarize my thoughts in. It's okay not to be okay. And if you want to be mad as hell, be mad as hell. Excuse my language, but I have to throw that on there for some emphasis. But also, as we continue to go out throughout our lives, be unapologetic about your pain. Be unapologetic, and it's not our job to white-splain everything. The people who, come over to our house, hold them accountable that you will go and have these conversations with your circles. In Kenosha, there are a bunch of white women that formed groups and saying, it's our responsibility. You can invite me as a consul and have a conversation, but also they're holding themselves accountable. That's not my job. When people ask me, well, how can I help? You're putting the burden on me to help you be a better white person or person in general. That's not my responsibility. So as we continue to go out and face these challenging situations, parents, have real and authentic conversations with your children. Definitely have real and authentic conversations with your children. Let them see you cry. As Black and brown people, we have been taught not to show pain because we can't show up in the workplace or the certain communities in the same lens. It is exhausting to code switch, not by the hour, but by the minute. Okay. So take your experiences, have real conversations with your children. Normalize what this is like. Don't sugarcoat that it's easy to be Black in America, because it's not. So I leave you with, be okay with not being okay. Activate all of your coping skills, your survival techniques to the fullest. Operate in your fullest right now. And that's what I have done myself as a protester and having to reground myself as a clinician. I had to operate in my totality. And for individuals out there who are figuring, well, where do I fit into this movement? Find your spot, because you are needed for the greater cause.
Well,
activate all your resources and don't stop. And by the way, don't bring nasty potato salad to the picnic.
Well, as a victim of some nasty potato salad, I concur with you. Please don't do that. My mother was from Alabama. I know how it's supposed to taste. Don't do that. Just say no. I appreciate it. And thank you very much, Dr. Pritchett. I see that you have put in the chat a way for people to get in touch with you, and I appreciate that. Let's see, I'll go to you, Mr. Davis, Brother Davis. What should folk do in Kenosha, in Wisconsin, and what do you want us to be doing in New York? Now that we've seen all of this, what do you think we should be doing?
Senator Sanders, one of the first things I believe we should do is hold our elected and appointed officials accountable.
Okay.
Number one, if they're not doing what we expect them to do, we go to the polls and vote.
We should.
We should vote for those that have ideas and concerns that we have. Because, like say, some of these officials that have been elected, we go all the way to the White House. If they're not doing the job we expect them to do, they need to be replaced. And as we hold, if that's not the only thing that we do, we continue to write to them and let them know our point of view, how we feel about the situation. And the other thing, we need to educate ourselves as to what the concerns are and what we should be looking at as we move forward. And like I said, I grew up, I came through a system here where they didn't teach us our own history. Where we had to learn about it, we had to learn about it at home, or we had to learn about it at church. But number one, we need the people to get out and vote. Take your mama, take your daddy, take your grandma, take your cousins, get them to the polls. Because this election is more important than any election that we've dealt with in so many years.
Well put, sir. Now you're not gonna get a mulligan, Ms. Henry. This is your moment. What do you think we should do in Kenosha? What should we do in Wisconsin? What should we do nationwide? What do you want the folk in New York, the Big Apple and other apples, bitten and unbitten, to know and do with you?
So first and foremost, I must say that we have to say their names. When we keep saying their names, that keeps the focus in our why, our purpose. When we keep saying Jacob Blake, when we keep saying Dontre Hamilton, Seville Smith, Joel Acevedo, Alvin Cole, Jay Anderson Jr., Joel Acevedo, when we keep mentioning those names, for me, it keeps us in the fight of our purpose and our why. Jacob Blake is still living, so we continue to advocate and create justice, get justice for him. But for the rest of those that I named and those who are not named, they're not living anymore, and they're not able to get in this fight. So we have to do it for them. So that fight includes part of what Mr. Davis is saying is getting to our elected officials and providing those demands, but being aware as to what those demands are and how to work those demands through. So that way they're effective and they're clearly heard. We see in Wisconsin, state representative is a part of the legislature, but he's on the right side of this and working with his colleagues to ensure that they're taking this seriously. Last week, there was an opportunity for them to do just that, but they gabbled in and gabbled out of a special session that our governor requested they have. I think it's continuing to apply that pressure and building up that momentum and letting them know that we're not leaving from this situation. We're not going to let up from this situation until you act. In Kenosha, I think what is happening now, where you have activists, you have the Porsches, and you have Jesse's, and you have others, you have Black, who activated. I think that is great because that activation coming out of this for this situation can turn into activism for other issues. It can now be they can be identified as organizers who are working to create some change. So support them. So those of you who are in Kenosha, support them, provide resources to them. We're doing that from here in Milwaukee to extend our physical selves, but also our voices so we can support that. I think the city of Kenosha, and this is something that we've asked from the Urban League perspective of appointing an independent prosecutor to investigate that shooting and holding the officer and officers accountable for that. This community needs to lift up their voice. They need to be applying pressure to those elected officials locally. And if those individuals aren't aware how to do that, say that. So that way that support and resource can come about. Additionally, I think there are going to be some long-term things that we're going to have to face that are going to come out of this. It's not just going to be an overnight change that we're going to see. We're going to have to continue to go to these meetings. We've been doing that here in Milwaukee and here in Wauwatosa. And we've been seeing how the response from that. But we also have to identify some other groups that can come in and provide us with support and leverage and coverage to build that awareness up. So even if it is the great folks in the great state, the Big Apple of New York, providing another layer of awareness and being vocal behind, hey, charges need to be placed. Do your job, elected officials, things of that nature. So I think we have to continue to apply the pressure because I think in their minds, they see that when we stop, things will go back to normal. And that's what they want. They want for whether it be the city of Kenosha, whether it be for Milwaukee, state of Wisconsin, or this country to go back to normal. We can't go back to normal. Normal has not worked. Normal isn't working. We have to now create uncomfortability so that way there cannot be a sense of normalcy for people who are not being impacted by this. I often say to the group that if there isn't something burning within you, in your heart, then that means you're not connected to this. If there isn't an emotional connection to say that we have to change what we are seeing right now, then something isn't connecting. And so we have to identify our why. We have to identify our purpose and stay connected to that why, and stay connected to that purpose, because it's going to be a long road ahead. And things will continue to evolve, but we have to stay in the fight.
Well put, well put. Well, my colleague and state representative, you have the penultimate word on that. I learned that big word the other day, just meaning next to last, but when you say it, people think you're smart, so I throw it around. You really don't know how to use it, but that's all right. You have the penultimate word on this one, sir. And let me take this moment to thank all of y'all for sharing these precious hours. You don't get them back, but you give them. So we really appreciate what you have given to people nationwide, and take this and share it. You have my permission to take this this video conference and share it with whoever, and use it as studying and whatever, any way that you can. Just as when you go on my Facebook page, you will find the one that I did on who is going around, what are the groups going around breaking up demonstrations, and you may find some useful information in there. My name again is James Sanders Jr., and that's what it's under, James Sanders Jr., around 2 months ago. Say again, Paul?
Yeah, this is Paul. Could I just take a moment to give an appreciation and thanks to the community partners for this event?
Well, after the right before I give my benediction, and after we hear from the state representative, you certainly can do that, sir. Save me from myself, I appreciate. Representative.
1 second, one quick thing, David. This is really quick. I would be remiss if I did not say the final action, not final, but another action that needs to be taken on the federal level is in applying pressure to the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell, to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It passed the House in June and has remained stalled on the Senate side. That legislation will provide some strict standards of police accountability to allow at least some of the things that we've been seeing now not to continue to happen. So get on the lines and tell Mitch to get it going.
I like it, Dr. Davis. Mr. Davis, right before the representative, is there any last word that you want to give?
Last thing, I wanted to recognize our national president, Derek Johnson, and also our state conference president, Wendell Harris Jr., for leading the state conference. He's given me the opportunity to speak. And also just to add one more thing, as Sister Henry had said, we just need to continue to apply that pressure to all our state, federal legislator, and also the laws that they have been putting in place, that the one that was put in place, recognizing John Lewis, the Voting Rights Act, to continue to put pressure on our legislators to move forward on that bill that has been presented.
Well put, sir. My representative.
Well, first off, I want to thank you before you get to your benediction, of just being able to spotlight the things that are happening over here in Wisconsin. Very fond of the state of New York and amazing leaders that are out there. We have a president right now that is hell-bent on demonizing the Black Lives Matter movement, demonizing people advocating for change. And he's used millions of dollars to put out these commercials highlighting these images of why you should not trust those individuals. But those individuals that I come across in this movement are some of the most kind, amazing, loving people that really want a new future for this country. So I appreciate everything that they've done to get us to this moment that we're in now. And it's all because they haven't stopped. It's all because they haven't given up. It's important that folks have learned that it's not just a presidential election and a presidential position that you should be concerned about. It's learning about your judges. It's learning about your DA. It's learning about your mayor and your council members and their advocacy for a law enforcement agency that will be running a way that it will be accountable, not to do what they want to do in isolation, in a silo, but that they truly will be accountable to the community. And that's the position that we're in. We're picking law enforcement leaders now that want to transform the system, not those that just want to defend the status quo. And it's important to protect the right to protest. If your law enforcement agencies, especially out in New York, if they're more focused on protesters that are out chanting in the streets, raising their voices, advocating for change, rather than the real threats that are out there to people's lives, the real threats that are out there to communities. And these are known threats. These aren't, invisible groups. They know about these groups. They just haven't paid attention to them. They haven't used their police resources to actually focus on their attention on the right threats. And the folks that are part of the movement are not the threat. They are not the ones coming to destroy the suburbs, as the RNC is tried to focus on in their convention. They are the folks that they want to see a prosperous future for everybody. So I'm really appreciative of this moment, to be able to serve, to be called to serve in this moment, and to be able to defend the right for people to advocate for systemic change. I'm glad I get a chance to do that on a national level as well, connecting with other states where they have majorities that are as oppositional as ours in Wisconsin. And maybe in New York, you might be able to pass legislation that will be a shining example that we can point to in Wisconsin and say, if New York can do it, maybe we can do it as well. If they can hold their law enforcement agencies to a higher standard of greater accountability, that usually helps us to help sell to our colleagues that we don't have to be afraid of this change. We don't have to be afraid of advocating for systems that will be accountable finally to Black people too. So I think that is one of the things that you can do. You can try to pass what you can pass, and make sure that the policies and the departments that are out there are advocating for defending the people that want this country, that want this state, that want our nation to be better, not continuing to side with the folks that are trying to tear us apart and try to tear us down.
Well put, sir. Thank you. Paul Alexander, you're going to act as the deacon today, and you're going to make sure that whatever I left out needs to be put in. Paul, would you be kind enough to thank our community, some of our community partners?
Yes, I want to recognize the following groups that sponsored this event. The Queen's Defenders, Guyanese Girls Rock Foundation, the King of Kings Foundation, South Jamaica Houses Resident Association, the Oceanside Apartments Resident Association, Beach 41st Street Resident Association, the NAACP Far Rockaway branch and the Jamaica branch, SISTA for Clean Water, and last but not least, the Metropolitan Black Bar Association.
Well, all right. I want to thank you, Paul, for your technical prowess. And as time goes on, when these people tune back, they're going to see you getting better and better and better. But I want to thank you for everything that you have done and what you have tried. One of the greatest living military strategists and writers, David Killiam, has just put out an article yesterday or yesterday warning America on its extremism. It's saying that America needs to watch this because it is moving towards a period of a type of insurgency. Now, he's not really talking about the left, my friends. He's talking about the white supremacists who have committed most of the terror, if not all of the terror in this period. So I think that we would do well to David Killiam is such a great writer on military strategy and war and things of that nature. And he is warning America that you really got to watch this stuff because it can go out of bounds. 2 more points. Let's see. I have a lot of faith in America. I've got incredible faith, and part of my faith is due to the understanding that the blood of Martin Luther King and the blood of Malcolm X run through these children. These are not strangers to you. You may be strange to them, but these are not strangers to you. I'm talking about to us adults, whatever that means. We should not be looking at these children as something that we've never seen before. We should wonder why we aren't out there now joining with them. There's still time. They'll save you a spot at the barricade. You need to come on out. Just as in Portland, some of the mothers surrounded the demonstrator to make sure that nothing comes in and nothing goes out that's not supposed to. And if you think that mothers and fathers, if you think that the thing is getting out of hand, why don't you go down and join with your children? Make sure that your children are safe. Make sure that they are headed in a direction. Why don't you go down not to lead, but to learn? Go down to listen to these folk. Listen to what they're saying. I think that you would be utterly surprised and delighted, and it will make you cry for being proud that you had a hand in these children being out there. So I'm encouraging all of us, but I'm also encouraged with the white youth and the white adults for that matter. I see that the blood of John Brown flows through their veins. If there's ever a spirit that can help break through this racism, this madness, it's the spirit of John Brown, a person whose generosity at a time when you couldn't even, among enlightened whites, a black person still had to come to they would allow you to come to the house, but you had to come to the back door. John Brown had people not only come to the front door, but sit down and eat at his table with his family. Now that's something we don't even do to this day. He would eat at his table with his family, and he took his children and put their lives on the line for a greater America. For his troubles, he had been so defamed. We need to all study a little bit more about American history and learn a little bit more about John Brown here. My last point, Sister Henry, is there is a thing in African culture, and I'm going to say it wrong, but y'all be with me, called the Zasa and the Zamani. In African culture, they look at the question of being dead a little bit different than we do. In traditional African culture, when you die, you're there, and that's the Zasa. You're able to have some impact on people's lives. The Zamani is when the last person who knows your name dies. That's when you are really dead. This is one of the reasons why we say their names. This is one of the reasons why we're in the tradition, my friend. This ain't nothing new. When we say in their names, this goes back beyond 400 years. We are saying their names because we're keeping them alive. And there are forces that wanted to kill them, bury them, and do all of those things, but they have forgotten something. When they try to kill us and bury us, they've forgotten that we are seeds. And when they bury us, we are going to grow so much stronger, so much better. So I encourage all of us to continue to not only say their names, but to say it in the face of power and to go a step further. But you want that beautiful future, then you got to be that future. You got to be that change that you're looking for. And you can't lead from the rear. You can't tell people what to do hiding under your bed. Nobody respects that type of leadership. You want to tell people what to do, first go out and learn from them. Struggle with them. You'll find that these are beautiful people. These ain't the folk you've been watching on Fox News. That's something else. So we're going to continue to say their names, as I've enjoyed saying all of your names. We are going to continue to fight the good fight, as I've enjoyed standing on your shoulders, learning from all of y'all. I am encouraged by what's happening in Wisconsin. No, I don't want things to go back to normal. I was losing under normal. I was dying under normal. didn't have a chance under normal. So I'm sorry, I don't want anything to do with normal. Malcolm taught us that when a man's winning a card game all the time, he ain't winning, he's cheating. So under those conditions, I want no part of normal. I want the new normal. I want the beloved community that Martin Luther King spoke of, the Reverend Doctor spoke of, and that is what we are trying to build, and we ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Play that music, Paul.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Union is behind us. We shall not be moved. The union is behind us. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom. We shall not be moved. Fighting for our freedom. We shall not be moved. Like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Fighting for our children. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our children. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Black and white together, we shall not be moved. Black and white together, we shall not be. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be. We shall not be moved. We shall not be just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Well, now we shall not be moved. Oh, we shall not be just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be. Oh, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water.